Good evening. I'm Alan Edelkine, candidate from the town of Dublin, chair of the committee in charge of organizing all activities for this project. I'd like to welcome our two audiences, in-house and online, to this important forum on the renovations of the CTE High School and possibly the Lucy Hurlin Theater. This forum is a part of our effort to inform the entire Conval community on what the CTE does, why these renovations are important to get done, the cost, the timeline for accomplishing, who benefits, what local industries think of the CTE programs, and why they are important. We have provided written communication, access to website information, engaged with the media, the ability for the Conval community to ask questions through email prior to the forum, and time for you to ask questions at the forum and receive answers. This important forum is one part of our want and need to engage with the Conval community. An important point I'd like people to remember is the school board is composed of community members just like you. We pay taxes just like you do. Every penny we spend comes out of our pockets just like yours. We give freely of our time, expertise, and commitment to make Conval the best, most cost-effective educational environment possible while being cost-conscious in all our endeavors. We are you. We are Conval. I'd like to introduce to you Tom Burgess, school board representative from Peterborough and the moderator for this forum. Tom? Okay.
That it's not on my screen.
Right.
Yeah. Good evening. I'm Tom Burgess, school board representative from Peterborough. I'll be serving as the moderator for tonight's community forum. We will be discussing the possibility of doing renovation work at the Career and Technical Education, or CTE, as it will henceforth be called by me, section of Conval's High School, and at the high school itself. The purpose of tonight's forum is to give a complete overview of the project, answer your questions, and get your feedback. Here's tonight's agenda. I will be giving a brief timeline of the project. Jen Kiley, the director of CTE in our area, will follow with a discussion of the value of a CTE education and the benefits of this potential renovation. We'll also have a couple of local employers who will come up during Jen's presentation to talk about the connection between the employers in our area and the CTE programs. Kim Grassi and Heather McCarthy, facilities director, and Heather McKellar, our principal, will be speaking next. They'll review the safety and academic needs that would be resolved by the potential improvements being considered for the high school. Jay Dougherty and Julie Spence from Lavelli Brenzinger Architects will go over the plans created to address the issues identified by Ms. Kiley, Mr. Grassi, and Ms. McKellar. School board member Curtis Hamilton will go over the various options the board is considering for the proposal and their respected costs. We will conclude with a question and answers, both from the in-person audience and those watching from home. Please hold your questions until we have heard from all the speakers. And please limit your questions to a maximum of 2 minutes so that everyone has a chance to be heard. The catalyst for this potential renovation is the state funding. Conval has the opportunity to have substantial state funding for a CTE upgrade. The CTE centers throughout the state are on a schedule to apply for state funding. Our 2-year window, last year and this year. This slide illustrates the conflicting forces confronting the school board and the Conval community. As you will hear tonight, we have aging facilities and safety concerns we want to address. We also have a lot of we can have a lot of the CT work subsidized by the state if we apply at this time. On the other hand, we are facing lower enrollment at our school. We've had an increase in taxes across the Conval community, and for various reasons. The school budget is up. In Peterborough, we know that we just had a bonding for the department. So we are aware of that, as Alan referred to, and that's a factor in whether or not we can proceed with this opportunity. Knowing we would shortly be eligible for state support, in December 2021, the school board voted to approve renovation planning and CTE program expansion. Throughout 2022, the board investigated the potential CTE renovation. A building committee was formed, several architects were interviewed, CT centers throughout the state were visited. Program instructors and their advisory committees gave their input as to what changes the CTE programs needed. Based on this work, in January 2024, Jen Kiley, our CTE director, submitted an application to the state for the potential renovation, which was approved. Okay, I have to walk over to the other side of the stage to start this video presentation, a brief video presentation of some of the students in the CTE programs and some former students from the CTE program.
CTE stands for Career and Technical Education, and the purpose of CTE is to help prepare students to be better ready to exit high school with an idea of what it is that they want to do in life. A lot of children, when they exit high school or even when they exit college, don't really have an idea of what it is that they might want to do for a career path, and CTE helps to prepare them.
It's a unique experience like no other for these students. A lot of times it's their first introduction into the professional world. It's a learning experience for everyone.
In the program here, my experience has been great because it allowed me to be creative in school and not so much just looking at a screen or being told what to do. You learn at your own pace almost. It's what you put in is what you get out. A traditional class, there's a set speed that you're supposed to learn things.
I think CTE allows students to get real-world skills and work-based learning skills that help them prepare to move on into an actual career.
I was interested in graphic design for a while, but when I took this class, it made me realize how much I actually love graphic design, and it's made me want to continue my career.
One of the things about CTE is it helps young people to figure out what's out there for other types of jobs instead of the traditional liberal arts, 4 years of college. That's not for everybody.
So most students earn around 9 credits if they choose to. With those credits, they can work as an associate level teacher in an early childhood classroom right out of high school if they wish.
Through the CTE Center, I've really seen what teaching can do and how you can really help children. It's something that I want to pursue.
I've had a bunch of friends that they've heard other people talking about how good the classes were, and they just didn't take the classes because they didn't know if they should sign up. I think they definitely should sign up for the CTE classes.
It's really fun working with the students from Conval. You know, it's really inspiring to be able to watch them keep growing.
I love this area in this classroom. It's amazing, but it's really hard when we have a full class and really being able to explore. And it's really hard in this cramped classroom.
Could use a little bit more space to kind of fit some more equipment in and have more people working with the same machine at once.
The new space that's being designed specifically for this program will have proper ventilation for the modern equipment. The new equipment is larger, it takes up more floor space. We'd have proper safety equipment in the area, such as ventilation, proper spacing.
I was just a freshman at Conval, and it gave me the opportunity to have a whole 4 years to work on those skills, which is something that I'm really grateful for, and I probably would not be here if it weren't for the Conval photo video department.
People that go to college pay all this extra money to get this higher education, but they're also going into debt after school. You can start your career in high school doing it for free.
I hope that this program will be around long after I retire. I hope the community continues to support it, and I hope that the parents are also wonderful supporters of our program.
CTE stands for Career and Technical Education.
Okay, so now I would like to introduce Jen Kiley, the director of the local Region 14 Applied Tech Center. She will be speaking on the value of career and technical education.
During the tour, but some folks I didn't have the opportunity to meet with yet, so I wanted the opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Jen Kiley. I have been the CTE director here at Conval for the past 7 years. But in addition to being the CTE director here, I'm also the mother of a student who is at SMS, and I'm also a resident. I live in Temple, I pay taxes with my husband, so I understand some of the burdens that we're looking at. And even considering those things, I want to share with you that I really strongly feel that CTE is a good investment for our community. It's a good investment for our students. It's a good investment for our community as a whole. I wouldn't be bringing forward to you and asking for your support for unless it was something I thought had viability for our community. Before I was in CTE, I was an English teacher, and I like to share this anecdote because for folks who don't know what CTE is, I think it helps to bring some light to it. When I was an English teacher, I was constantly getting questions from my students. Why do I need to learn the 5-paragraph essay? When am I going to learn how to do this again? Why do I need to do this? And there are reasons why they need to learn how to do the 5-paragraph essay, because it teaches them research skills. It teaches them communication skills. But when we get to CTE, I don't get those questions very much because students can automatically see what the connection between what they are learning in our classes and how they will be able to use that in the real world. And that's what the difference is for CTE. We are teaching kids how to be ready for careers after college. Some of our kids are going to go to college to have those careers. Some of them are going to go right from high school to the military. They're going to go into industry. Some might go to trade schools, and all of those are viable pathways for them. We help them find those pathways and the different entrance ramps and exit ramps that are going to work for them. So this is what our CTE Center entrance looks like right now. And I want to just share a little bit because I know some folks in the room don't have the same passion that I do and don't necessarily understand what it is. CTE stands for Career and Technical Education. Some of you folks might be familiar with it or think of it as the old VOTEC or the shop or where the kids went that weren't going to college. That's not what CTE is anymore, folks. We offer more college credits through our CTE programs than we offer through the academic side of the house. We offer industry-recognized credentials. We offer a whole bunch of different certifications and skills that kids are able to put on their resume that enable them to be better prepared to do whatever it is that they want to do when they exit out. We do a lot of interdisciplinary programs where we are showing students we are going to use what they are learning in English, in math, in social studies, and in science in practical ways, because we are doing it through hands-on learning. And that's really what sticks with kids. You can tell them things all you want, you can show them things, but when you involve them in the learning, and when it's project-based learning, that's what sticks with them. In addition, in our CTE classes, and I alluded to this a little bit when I was highlighting Joe Hodgkin, who was one of our recent CTE Student of the Month winners, they're learning those interpersonal skills that regardless of what career they have or what role they fill in society as they become adults, they're going to need. Things like collaboration, communication, accountability. All of those things are pieces that we need to see in our young adults, and they're not things that they're just going to pick up from hanging out with their friends. They're things and skills that need to be taught, and that's what we are teaching in CTE at the same time that we are teaching all of those technical skills. We want our students to be able to learn how to read a micrometer. We want them to learn how to take their blood pressure. We want them to learn how to create business plans. But we also want them to learn how to be contributing members of our community. And that's part of what CTE is dedicated to. I want to give a little bit more background. So you're going to hear some acronyms. People say that education is acronym soup or alphabet soup. So we have CTE, which is Career and Tech Ed. That is what we use at the national level. Our center is called the Region 14 Applied Technology Center, or the ATC. And the Region 14 Applied Technology Center is actually made up of 3 different school districts. We've got Conval, we've got Messinic, and we've got Jaffrey Ringe. All of our students are eligible to attend programming at all 3 of these different sites. Currently, Conval has 7 different programs, Jaffrey Ringe has 1, and Messinic also has 1. Messinic has the Automotive Tech program, and Jaffrey Ringe hosts the Construction Trades program. Talk to you a little bit more about what the value of CTE is. And I really think that this is worth expanding on because it's different from our traditional classes because it adds to students' education, but it also adds to the community as a whole. Those of you who are able to participate on our tour, I hope you got to hear a little bit about the collaboration that happens with industry in our area, with people who are owning businesses in our area. We solicit actively community involvement because we want our students to be able to work with small businesses, to work with nonprofits, to build those technical skills, but also to build more of those interpersonal skills. I think we can all agree that we want to be well prepared and competitive for the job market when they exit high school. The Association for Career and Technical Education released data just this February that showed that 52% of jobs in New Hampshire require skills training. And they define that as training that you need that goes beyond high school, but it's less than a 4-year degree. Only 43% of New Hampshire workers are trained at this level. CTE is working to fill that gap. We have jobs right now that are going unfilled because we have people who have graduated from high school, people who have graduated from college, and they simply do not have the skills their employers' needs. CTE works with our program advisory committee members, which are made up from folks from industry, made up from post-secondary, in order to identify where those skill gaps are, educate our students, and enable them to be better ready to enter those pipelines. CTE is learning brought to life. We are project-based learning. We are working with industry professionals. Our Manufacturing 2 students, for example, are getting ready to embark on a 2-week outing to American Steel, where they're going to spend 5 days a week at American Steel working hand in hand with those professionals to learn those different trades from professional workers and then create a piece at the end. Our careers and education students go out twice a week to practicum, to work with real students and real teachers and learn what it takes to be a teacher. They're not just learning about the theory, they're learning by doing. And that learning by doing is what sticks with the kids. It's what makes their education more memorable. It's what makes their skills be able to be transferable. Our digital photo and video and graphic design children are connecting with the community. I know you heard during our tour, we're creating posters for nonprofits. They're rebranding for free local community members material. We've got a honey maker in Temple who brought all of her stuff in, and the kids rebranded it for her to make it more saleable. And we also have students that are generating award-winning images and films. I like to brag, and it's nice because all of these kids are my students, but they're my kids as well, that we took home more awards in the New Hampshire Scholastic Arts Festival last year than any other public school in the state. And we are certainly not the biggest public school in the state, but our kids have the skills and they have the accomplishments to shine when it comes to that state level. We've had kids premiere films in New York City. We had one child who won the top short film for the state. Kids are making experiences when they learn. They're making deep connections that are helping to guide them to a career path that works with the goals that they have for themselves. It's also about work-based learning. And I know some of you had the opportunity to connect with Zach Jones, who's our work-based learning and extended learning opportunity counselor here. An integral part of CTE is getting out in the field and actually working with professionals, because you can learn a lot of theory when you're in the classroom, but until you are working on the job floor, you don't know if this is the career for you. Just this semester, we have students interning or apprenticing at New Hampshire Ball Bearing, Monadnock Community Hospital, Private Roots Veterinary. We have folks that are at Harding Plumbing and Heating, and all of these career pathways and internships are leading to jobs in New Hampshire with good wages, and let students stay in our community and invest here. So we currently have 7 programs offered at the Conval site. We have business management, or which covers from personal finance to business management and entrepreneurship. We've got careers in education, which gives a foundation in educational theory from birth to grade 12, and then the student doing practice. We've got computer and information technology, which addresses different pathways from video game design and coding to networking and hardware repair. Digital photo and video, which, as I have bragged, is one of the state's most award-winning programs. Pre-engineering, where students range from fields from architecture to civil engineering to rocketry. Graphic design, where students get the foundation in design theory before learning how to master the Adobe Creative Suite. And manufacturing, where students are learning to take projects from concept to design to production in mediums that range from wood to plastic and metal. We do our best to offer our students a range of career pathways so that they can explore and find out what connects for them. Now, some people have asked already what percentage of students are accessing these programs. We have approximately 660 students just this year, and we're only considering students in grades 10 through 12, because in the state of New Hampshire, that's who's eligible to take part in CTE programming. 355 students, or more than half of the students in our school in grades 10 through 12, are taking at least one CTE class. Most of our classes are semester-based, only the careers and ed classes are year-long, and some students are taking more than one class in a semester over the course of. We're offering them lots of opportunities, but unfortunately, in some of our programs, we have significant wait lists where we are not able to allow all the students in because we simply don't have the size and the space available. I also wanted to note, as I had mentioned previously, that we've got the sending schools of Conant and Messinic. Those folks send students here to us. We have a seat ratio that allows for them to have at minimum 25% of their seats, and they tuition in. So we take in tuition and funds for the students that we're educating for folks out of district. We've actually had some students who were from sending schools who took a CTE program class, liked what they saw so much here, full-time students at Conval. Another really important part of CTE that sets us apart from traditional academic classes is the inclusion of industry credentials and then also the post-secondary connections. Those are requirements at the federal level that we have to have. So, for example, I know we had some questions previous about what sorts of certifications are students earning and what does that look like. Last year, we had 25 students earn their first aid, CPR, and AED certification. 9 students earned their ASE maintenance and light repair certificates. 21 students earned their OSHA 10s, and 11 students earned their Universal Design for Learning associate level credential. This year, in response to what industry has asked, we're also offering a metrology set of certifications. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that word, it's measurement. It's the science of measurement. Because what we've heard from our local manufacturers is a lot of the people, the candidates, adult candidates that they're receiving, don't know basic measurement skills. They can't read a tape measure. They can't use a micrometer. They can't use a whole variety of different ways that they need to be able to measure. And we know they have to be able to measure to hundreds, thousands of the inch, and they have to be able to do that with skill. They don't have that, and we need to be able to build that now. In the past, we've also offered certifications in SolidWorks, Cisco, and Six Sigma Yellow Belt. And students who are not earning an IRC, for example, in our graphic design and digital photo programs, are building portfolios. And for those of you who are familiar with that, that portfolio has as much credibility as a certification because they take that with them when they go to job interviews, and they're able to demonstrate the breadth of their work. They're able to demonstrate the different skills that they've been able to master. In addition, we offer 33 college credits through our CTE program, which I'm proud to say is more than even the academic side of the house here at Conval. In addition to that, any student in the CTE program here is eligible for 8 articulated credits at Keene State Community College, and we have over 200 different students who are earning college credits just this semester in our CTE programs. I want to go over a little bit about what the space needs are. Some of you folks saw that as we were on the tour. So the current space issues, I want to help you understand this, and it's not a want, it's a need. We need the space to expand. We need the space to better serve our students. Our current facilities are old. Our current facilities do not enable us to better prepare our people to enter into their chosen fields. And we're going to take one particular program and use that as a thread to follow through to make it a little bit easier. So we're going to take a look at our manufacturing students. Actually, I guess we had the picture change. These are our students from our digital photo program, but you can see how crammed together they are trying to work on their projects. Some students are on the computers working on editing pieces. Some students are creating art with the different light aspects that they're using. It's really tight. When you look at the manufacturing spaces, some of you folks saw on the tour, kids are crammed around 2 little workbenches. That's not safe. Any of you folks who have at shop before know that you want to have a little leeway, a little bit of room between you and the person next to you who's using a hammer or who's using a saw, especially if you're using a piece of electric equipment. We actually have OSHA rules that require how many students are allowed to be around certain pieces of equipment, and there's areas of safety that are painted around those large pieces. Unfortunately, at this time, I can't say that we are offering that with fidelity because we just don't have the space to accommodate it. It's not up to industry standards. What you're going to hear from some of our CTE employers coming up soon is that the equipment that we have in our classroom are not what they are using out in industry. We need to be able to train students on the equipment that is out, that's being utilized now by our different industry folks, and also we're trying to prepare them for what they're going to encounter in the future. So we have to stay on the cutting edge. We have to train them to be able to use what that new equipment is, and currently we're not able to fulfill that. And finally, we get down again to that modern equipment use. Those of you who are on the tour, and unfortunately we were somewhat brief with the manufacturing space, saw that we have 3 new metal lathes in our manufacturing shop, but we don't have any of the pieces that we need to go along with them, venting, or the storage, or all the other elements that go into manufacturing pieces that are made with metal. So we need to be able to grow that program so that our skills are being able to be built with our students. And this, just as an example, and I know the architects will get into this a little bit more depth later, shows you what that manufacturing space could be. And I think for most folks, you would understand we definitely are going to want the wood lab separated from the metal lab because we don't want any fires, right? We don't want any sparks. And we need to have a clean room where the kids are learning about CAD and they're able to do the SolidWorks and the developing that goes along with it. All of that takes sufficient areas of space. When we are thinking about the CTE programs as they exist now and as we'd like them to be, we're also taking into account what are our students interested in. So in the school year 23-24, we surveyed all of the all the middle school students in the district, grades 5 through 8, and this is what they're interested in pursuing for career pathways. You can take a look. Some of those numbers are pretty substantial. Health science, it covers a wide breadth of different career pathways, from being a doctor or a nurse down to a physical therapist or a dental hygienist. We have folks interested in all those careers in education, all the way through to engineering and business. So CTE is what students want. It's what students are interested in. CTE is also about what industry needs. So if you take a look at this graphic, you can see it's relatively recent metrics from Indeed, just for the Peterborough area, from late November. It shows you different careers in 3 of those pathways, different titles, and what the job listings are. There's over 300 jobs available in our area for licensed practical nurses, and it shows you what the starting wages are. You can see the same for manufacturers and machinists. You can see for veterinarians. Anybody who has a pet in this local area, I know that you have seen that we have had a lot of veterinarians retire. We've had a lot of folks, vet techs, not be able to fill time for folks because it's just not enough people there to meet the needs. All of these have livable wages that students would be able to exit into and stay in our community. The 2 program expansions that we're asking you to consider are for health science, which we had previously at Conval, and that, as I said, covers all of our allied health. We'd be really excited to be able to partner with TI to offer the dental hygienistry program, and that has college credits associated with it, and then also animal science. And I want to focus a little bit about the layouts for those. This would be the piece for health science, so you can see students who are doing some practical application in the medical area. We've got space for the dental hygienistry. They're learning how to do the instructional pieces, but then they're also going to be going out into the field. So one of the partners that wasn't able to join us today is from St. Joseph's School of Nursing, and we're actually just getting ready to launch a medical assisting program. We don't have the space in our school for the students to get the instructional, the theory pieces of that, so we have to send them to Milford, and they have to go to St. Joseph's School of Nursing and get that instructional portion. But then they're going to be coming right back to our area, to Monadnock Community Hospital, to get that practical piece and get the job-related skill portion. This is what our animal science piece would look like. And so I want you guys to see that it's going to benefit not just the students, but it's going to benefit the community as a whole. We're going to have a grooming salon that's going to be open into the public, and we're going to be inviting community members to come and book times to have their animals taken care of. We have a provider exam office where students are going to be able to observe different surgical procedures are happening. And we're also going to be able to offer to our community rabies and other vaccination clinics where the students are going to be able to assist with the help of a trained veterinarian. So these are things that we're going to be able to bring to our community as a service, as part of your investment. At this point, I'd like to bring on stage Bill Farr, who represents New Hampshire Ball Bearing, and Laura, if you wouldn't mind coming up, from Rivermead, and they're going to share a little bit about their experiences working with our CTE students and what that partnership has looked like.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Shea. I'm the CEO over at Rivermead. And we have been working with the students here at Conval for the last several years with apprenticeships and internships to bring the students into our community and help them explore different opportunities that they may want to make a career out of, or they may just want to explore and see if it's for them. And just give them the opportunity to see if working in healthcare is a field of interest. And it doesn't mean that you just have to be a nurse when you work in healthcare. We have culinary opportunities. A recent student who came to us as an apprentice in his senior year has now stayed with us full time since he has graduated last year. So he started as a culinary apprentice. But additionally, we have people who work in facilities and who work in the maintenance team. We have people who work in graphic design and our marketing team, also do photography and video editing. And then additionally, we of course have the health center where we give care at all levels, from people who are PCAs, I mean personal care assistant, staff who are LNAs, like assistants, and then they can go on from there to be MNAs, being able to give medications, LPNs, and RNs. And I will just give a personal story that back when my niece went here to Conval, she got her LNA license here at Conval for free. Got that great job training. From there, she did go to college, and during college worked as an LNA, a licensed nursing assistant, to help pay for college, and today she's an RN. And that all sparked from the opportunity here at Conval, which otherwise she may never have done. And now she works at Cheshire Medical Center, and she's giving back to our community today. Still lives here in Bennington. So CTE, given the opportunity to explore careers that they've never considered before, develop skills, but it's also about developing other proficiencies like problem solving, communication, and other soft skills like time management and working with others. And, you know, working around adults is not always an opportunity that kids get. They get to do after-school activities here at Conval, things like drama or sports, but being in the workplace is really an opportunity to get to learn what being an adult is like and those adult responsibilities. So those soft skills really go a long way. And with the experience gained through a CTE education during high school, work right in our town, like you see many of them do. Some of them work for us right at Rivermead in our dining room, and get great opportunities there. You see some at Dunkin' Donuts and Shaw's. But, you know, seeing the kids take these skills that they're learning and bring them to part-time work during high school really is very meaningful for their long-term success. And I do find that young people who come to work with us who have had the opportunity to work in high school or in their early college career really are some of the best employees out there, much better than those that have just come out of high school or college and only ever participated in sports. They're just missing that skill set that we're really looking for. For these students right out of high school, they are also given the opportunity to jump right into a trade or right into the workforce. And if we're so lucky, they stay right here in the Monadnock region, which is, I know, exactly what we're all hoping for. So if we invest in them, they invest back in us. And then for kids who are college bound, it's a way to support themselves while they're in college with a part-time job, just like I shared my niece did. So Conval gave her the opportunity to earn really good money so that she could put herself through college. So it really sets them up to succeed no matter what path they're on. And so, like I said, Rivermead employs many Conval students, any graduates, and that is myself included. I graduated from Conval in 1997 and made an entire career out of my high school job, which I worked at Rivermead in high school. I was a dishwasher. So came full circle, came back 27 years later, and I'm now the CEO. And so what Conval does, connecting their students with jobs, internships and opportunities like that, really does go a very long way. I also did the CTE education program while I was here at Conval. It turned out I did not want to be a teacher. But that's a really awesome thing to learn too, that you don't want, because I didn't invest my college money into a career that it turned out I didn't want. And so the CTE program not only helps you find things you want, it helps you explore things you don't want. And that's exceptionally valuable. So, you know, at businesses like Rivermead, we really do depend on kids being, you know, ready for the workforce, having those soft skills, and we can teach them all the hard skills, but getting the experience of being, just exploring what's of interest to them and learning what it's like to be a responsible worker really does go such a long way. So as we consider the costs, I would say we're getting a discount. It's 75% off. And if you think of it that way, we'd be crazy to not take this money and invest in our students, but also our community. So I'm a huge advocate. On behalf of Rivermead, we're huge advocates, and I would just encourage everyone's support. So thank you.
And I'm Bill Farr from New Hampshire Ball Bearing. And one of the needs that we have right now is employees. we need to hire people. And we're hiring people all the time. We're hiring 10, 12, 15 people a month. Most of them come from service industries, some from McDonald's. And they last for 3 weeks, they last for a month maybe, and then they take off and do something different. And so I think what the CTE does for us is it gives us people that have a little bit of experience. They're not certainly going to come in and know exactly what we're doing, but they have the discipline, they have the understanding of what we're trying to get to, and it kind of gives them a heads up, and they're a little bit ahead when they come in. Talking about getting SolidWorks certified, Six Sigma Yellow Belt certified, that's all great stuff that we can take right away. We can have kids that come in and they understand what they're doing. One of my engineering jokes that I kind of use is that if we can have a kid come in and understand that a flute is a cutting edge on a tool and not an instrument, that's great. That's a heads up for us. Thank you for laughing. Those people just kind of look at it like, all right. But really, in the interpersonal skills, knowing that you can't sit there on your phone all day long, and you actually have to talk to people. You have to communicate. You can't just text them. You actually have to talk to people, and so getting kids to understand that they're part of the big picture and going through that really work for us. So I can't stress the importance of it. It's very important, and I'll kind of piggyback on what Laura said. We had one young lady that came in. She was a senior doing an internship in engineering, and she was there for a semester. And when it was done, she was very happy that it was done because she decided she did not want to go into engineering, and she went into biostats or something. But it was just a great program because she could have gone in and spent 4 years in engineering school and then come out and get a job someplace and say, I hate this. This is not what I want. So it was really a good program. I'll also jump on from engineering and manufacturing off to what my dad had on. My daughter, almost 20 years ago now, took health sciences here at Conval. She was a Conant student. Sorry. She came here and took that and decided she actually loved physical therapy. And she went in and got a doctorate in physical therapy, and now she's doing early intervention with kids under the age of 3. So it was all started here in that program. So it was a great success for her. So that's it. Okay.
So in closing, folks, I want to say that I understand I'm asking you to make an investment, but I'm asking you to make an investment in our students, in our children, and an investment in our community. We want the CTE Center to be a place where students get the skills that they need to be successful. It also can be a place where the community gathers to refresh their own skills in programs like CTE After Dark, where the public can come in and take adult classes at night. I appreciate that this is an expensive endeavor. As a taxpayer, I get it. I got my tax bill too and wasn't psyched. But I can assure you that you are going to get a return on your investment, that you will see the ability of our graduates and the contributions that they are going to make to our community. Thank you very much.
Next up, we will have Tim Grossi, the Facilities Director, and Heather McKillop, our Conval High School Principal, talk about the facility requirements that and teaching and learning needs that could be met by the we're looking at the high school.
Thank you, Tom. As he noted, my name is Tim Grossi. I'm the Director of Facilities for the Conval School District, a taxpayer, a parent of kids that went through this program, and I'm also a CTE graduate from Cheshire Botech in Keene from 1980, a long time ago. Recently, we had an audit performed, voluntary audit. Actually, all of our schools did, from the New Hampshire Department of Homeland Security. They came in, assessed our facilities, and one of the layouts you're going to see that's being proposed is a result of that assessment that was done to our facility here at the high school. Another thing you're going to see, which takes another problem that we have or concern that we have, is accessibility throughout our school. Chair lifts, multiple levels. It can go, well, they're not slides. We have, signage on our doors, directional labeling throughout the building. Let's see some of them now. We also have another thing that you will hopefully saw, some of the furnishings as we walk through the hallways. Though the wood paneling looked nice perhaps on the outside of some of our school classrooms, it's from 1969. So another thing that we are hopeful in the renovation is addressing those issues and meeting healthy school compliance with solid surfaces on the floors, with also energy efficient fixtures throughout. Right now, our building has roughly 60% of our facility lit with LED lighting, which means we have opportunity for improvement.
All right, so another area, if we were to go forward with a renovation project in the CTE space, something that the high school would gain would be improving natural light in the classrooms. So new classrooms that would be created or redesigned spaces, repurposed classrooms for what we have right now, they would be built intentionally to give for a brighter, more welcoming environment that would help support student focus. Also, to enhance our learning spaces for collaboration. So for those of you that joined us on the tour, when we transitioned down to manufacturing, that longest walk we had, we went through one of those spaces. So as you can see right here, and this helps as well, this is where we rounded that corner to take that left downstairs. This is actually a hallway. So we put some tables and chairs out there to try to have some of those hubs for collaboration and creativity. However, being able to redesign those spaces to create a versatile environment where students and staff can work together and collaborate. CTE really talks about learning on display, and that's something that we'd like to do a little bit more of in our school. So having a renovation would also give us that opportunity. And our architects will talk a little bit more about the design. And then there is our Lucy Herlin Theater, our auditorium that you're sitting in right now. So when this was created, which was for my time, I started July 1, 2020, so I'm in year 5 here. This space was not created to be a theater. It was created to be so this space that you're in right now, there are some things that would be wonderful for our students. So right now we are not teaching lighting or sound. So lighting, safe and modernized lighting systems, including energy efficient LED lighting, better stage lighting for performances, an updated programmable lighting board to align with industry standards, which you've heard several times tonight, the importance of being able to align with industry standards. A improved sound systems for clear amplification, better audio accessibility for all patrons, proofing to support both teaching and community use. Other improvements or opportunities, if a renovation project was to happen, would be new technology throughout this space, a backstage area, a stage with a fly space, new mechanical systems, a back crossover so our students could actually go across when there's a performance and not run around the hallway quickly, so they're trying to get back for their scene or their act on time. A performance dance floor, which this currently is not. Some improved student spaces, also an opportunity to partner members of our community to use this theater space. So a lot of those enhancements would also help our theater teacher with some of the teaching and learning needs, and they'd have hands-on experience as our students. The next piece here is talking about accessibility and the audience experience. Again, these are opportunities if there is a renovation. So to ensure proper backstage access and safer stage design for performers, add accessible seating throughout here. As you can see right here, if you come in at the end of these front 2 rows, we can have a wheelchair here, but it is not built to be accessible for all that be in this space or that could be in this space. Having new seats for the chairs you're sitting in right now, upgrading the carpets to be stain resistant, visually cohesive, enhancing the aisle and the aisle spaces right here. When the lights go off for the performance, it's, if you get up, you've got to be very careful so you do not fall. Overall navigation to and within the theater. So those are some opportunities and needs for this current space. And Tom, thank you.
So you heard from our CTE director, you've heard from our facilities director and our principal about some of the issues that we were facing. And so, like I mentioned before, we interviewed many different architectural firms, and we settled on the one that we have here tonight with us, Lavelli Bresinger, and they created some design solutions to address some of the issues that you just heard about. So they're going to come up and describe them.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jay Doherty. I'm one of the architects. Also with me is Julie Spence. We're architects and CTE planners, educational planners. I started, actually, my architecture career started in New Hampshire CTE. So CTE is really a passion for me as an architect. I started not too far from here many, many years ago in the CTE architecture program at another school here in New Hampshire. And that has just gone on for me to become an architect where I am today. A little bit about us and our firm, Alliance Solutions here. Lavelli Bresinger has done a lot of schools throughout New England. Julie and I, our specialty is our schools, especially CTE centers. We find them really important for all the reasons we just heard about and learned about. These are some of the CTE centers we've recently worked on throughout the state. Everywhere from Winnisquam that we're working currently right now in Tilton, all the way through throughout the state from Newport and Claremont we're working with. We're working in Milford right now, helping them through their project. Hudson, Palmer CTE over there, Chester and the Salem CTE project, and up in Laconia. We've worked on a lot of CTE centers throughout the state. And what we really find important of them are creating spaces that students have the opportunity to get real firsthand experience in a space. Also, in addition to that, spaces that have tools and the equipment they need so that they can learn about what is happening out in the industry. And that's really what this project's about, is to create these spaces for these students.
So in addition to listening to needs that the schools have and trying to find a solution to all of those things that you've already heard, we independently come to the school and do an existing space analysis where we bring all the engineers and architects and we walk through the space and we look at all of your finishes, your structure, the HVAC system and everything. We have Hello? Okay. No, my notes are over there. No, just forget it. I'm going to go with that. So we do an independent report, and we give that to the school board. I'm sure it's published somewhere, but if somebody wants to ask where it is, we'll let you know. But as you can see, when it comes to ADA compliance, there are 6 different levels in this school, and it's a lot of up and down. And so what we would like to do is to try to address some of those. And you can see that also the 2012 renovation, we kind of looked at that. That's in a really good condition, so we don't really need to address those areas. So we're sort of targeting the older areas of the building for the renovation. Am I working now? So in addition to that, you heard that the area is projected to experience some decline in enrollment. And we looked at the existing class offerings and where they're offered, times of day, and how often. And we look at each of the spaces. Go ahead. In each of the core curriculum areas, we look at, right now, when the study was done, we were looking at 717 students last year. We currently have 638 or something, 58. So you're already experiencing some of that decline in enrollment. And so we look at how that might affect the number of classrooms that you actually need. It's not a one-to-one proposition at all, because the state requirements have certain classes that need to be offered, so the declining enrollment doesn't necessarily get rid of all of the classrooms, but looking at it with a really conservative eye as to changes in enrollment over the long term and not pigeonholing yourself into having not enough classrooms, as well as looking at where we can be flexible with all of these things. But we feel really comfortable with the fact that we could probably reduce at least 5 classrooms in the space and still be able to function very well for that population. So this is a existing plan of the upper level. In order to be, now I need my notes. So as this building has been added on to over time, there have been the CTE addition in the 90s, was sort of in 3 areas of the building. And in the time since then, education has changed considerably, and one of the areas that has changed the most is in special education. So at some point after the design of the original space, the Careers in Education program, which had a preschool program associated with it, decided to close the preschool and shift their focus towards a multi-generational, multi-level teaching model, not just for the little kids. So when that preschool closed, the need at the school at the time was for special education. So they've moved into that space right now, and it isn't necessarily designed for them. They're using it, it's there. But in order to be eligible for CTE funding through the state, this space that was built with these CTE designated dollars, that space has to be returned to being CTE. So this is where we're targeting to renovate that space for the new animal science program. And we need to find space for this special ed that is in those spaces. So we're going to be using those spaces, those 5 classrooms, and renovating it for those purposes. Another thing about the design in the initial CTE was that it was in 3 separate areas, and the CTE programs feel very disconnected from each other. In the upper level here, you can see that there are 3 programs. On a lower level, you have to go up the stairs, around the corner, and down the hallway of this other to get to 3 more of them. And then in the lower level, way off the back, if you went through the tour, they're entirely disconnected from the rest of the school. So one of the things we would like to do is make improvements on how they're connected with the rest of the high school. New upper level plan at the completed design would have a new main entrance, and we'd reorient the admin to allow for a secure entry there, so that visitors coming into the school would come directly into the administration before having the opportunity to mingle with kids. They'd check in and be cleared before they would be mingling with students. Adjacent to that would be a new 350-seat auditorium right in the heart of the building, and the spokes of clear wayfinding and corridors off of that would be spokes for the CTE and academic spaces. The upper level CTE spaces would include that animal science area that would be renovated to launch that new program. Careers in education and the health science program would be renovated in the original space that it was. This would be a services sort of cluster of CTEs together. And manufacturing, engineering, and program would be together as sort of a STEM cluster adjacent to that. Next one, Jay. And then there would be a career center and the business program. As you heard Jen Kiley say, these CTE programs really like to connect with the community. So by bringing the business program forward towards the entry, they would be able to have a business simulation area there. There could be either a store where they're connecting with the community to learn sales skills, or it could be a meeting space where you could actually head out or allow for other community organizations to use it. There would also be a career center, which would be connecting all students to training and testing that they would need for any career, whether it's CTE or not. In the existing lower level, we'd be moving those manufacturing, computer, and engineering programs upstairs and relocating some of the spaces that are in the underground area under the first level access to natural light. As much as possible, we'd be moving them out and correcting some of the accessibility issues in that corridor. At the completed level, the area where manufacturing and computers and engineering are now would be renovated into an arts suite where the two arts-related CTE programs would be co-located with the high school arts programs and really creating a very vibrant community in that zone of the school. And it would be adjacent to the lower level of the auditorium where they have an expanded theater arts program. That's more the three high school CTE, the two CTEs, the high school arts and the theater arts program.
So the second part of the project that you're going to learn about a little bit is the auditorium. And the auditorium is in the space we're in right now. So this is an excellent time to talk about the space that we're actually in. Jen and Tim and Heather all kind of talked about some of the issues with the space. Heather really went into detail of some of that will be solved, and here is kind of a list of some of the things that will be solved with this. But if we can, as we're in this space, kind of imagine the space. The space is going to be much different than it is right now. It's actually going to be a two-story space, so it's not really a renovation. It's a really complete gut and rethought of this space to be a real theater that students can use and the audience can really have a great experience in. So this will be a two-story space all the way up to the second floor. Taking out everything you see here, including the spaces beyond on both sides. Opening this up and spinning it around so that as you enter now, you'll actually be entering from the second floor, which is the main level you enter into the school at, and you can come down into the theater. So you'll be coming down into the theater this way, and the stage would be on that side, reusing those classrooms in the back as backstage, as makeup rooms, as changing rooms, as all the spaces that are needed for the back side of the performance. So rather than coming down and going around and coming in, you're actually going to be entering directly in, and the stuff that's behind it would be behind it, which makes more sense. So it's really looking at the space much differently of how the space would be totally renovated, gutted, and re-put back together in a way that students and people that are here in the audience can really enjoy the space. In addition to that, so this space would be in the center, the heart of the school, which is right in the center of the school. Around it, it's kind of looking at 3D of what we're planning on doing, as Julie explained. kind of look at it. As we look at the gray areas, we have the cafeteria and the library. We're really doing minimal there. As we move around to the two-story classroom area, we're doing very minimal there too, with the exception of some of the CTE space that has been used for special ed. The special ed spaces that are being moved out, they're going to be repurposed in some of those classrooms that are in these areas to special ed in with standard classrooms. So there'll be small changes there, but really nothing that happens in there. As we move around the gymnasium and the piece that was recently added, there will be really no changes in that area. As we move around to the front, though, you'll see that the wing that is currently some of the CTE, it has a CTE entry, will be demolished. That will come down, and that's going to give us space to do some new CTE stuff that we'll show in 1 second here. As we move around, the next part is the health nursing area. That will remain as is. And then as Julie talked about for the new science, that space will be renovated CTE space. And then as we go all the way around to the lower level, we'll have an arts area that the CTE and the high school can be integrated together. So this is what it looks like now. When we renovate it, we're going to have a new main entry in the front. That will be a new addition to address some of the safety and security needs we've recently talked about. In addition to that, there'll be a new other piece on the front of it that will house a majority of the CTE programs that you'll see. So that's really the big changes you'll see on the building. If we look at that in 3D as in a rendering, beginning parts of a rendering here, one side, which on the far right there, is the CTE. We're really trying to celebrate the CTE, celebrate what those students are doing in there. Lots of natural light, also on display, so people can understand what they're working on, the tools they're working on, and make that really a highlight of this. To the other side here, you see the main entry. And as we zoom into that main entry, there's a lot of features inherent in this design about safety and security, about double checks, about having people be able to go through certain sequences, and several other things of the way the canopies and the pieces are put into this that addresses a lot of those safety and security needs that have been brought up by Homeland Security in the school. So in addition to these pieces, the entry and the CTE, that's the overall design solution that we've come up with for the project. Here is the list of some of the pieces that we've recently talked about, and as you can see, we've tried to address as many as we can, such as the safety and security with a new entry form, updating the CTE spaces that we've talked about, connecting the CTE spaces so they can be able to work together, more natural light where it's possible and when we can do that, trying to create student spaces so students can have ownership and collaboration spaces where they can begin to work together outside the classroom or right outside the classroom. Improve learning spaces throughout wherever we are touching. Improve accessibility for all students, and then new auditorium. With that, I will turn it back over to Tom and Barbara Curtis to talk about the next part. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And now we're going to have on options and costs. And that presentation is going to be by Curtis Hamilton, school board member from Greenfield.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Curtis Hamilton. I am the school board representative to my town of Greenfield. Is that not working? There we go. I'm going to be walking us through the options that are in front of us and the costs that are associated with these options. And before I jump into the costs, I want to briefly touch on how we are looking at these projects at this. We are considering them in two pieces. The first piece is CTE and high school renovations. The second piece is the auditorium. There are a few reasons we're looking at it like this. The first is that it is architecturally possible to delineate between these two projects. We can renovate CTE in high school without touching the space. And this allows the board a little bit of latitude in how we go about considering the scope of this project. In the event that we would recommend or move forward and seek voter approval for both portions of this project, we would be able to extend that choice to the voters as well by proposing two warrant articles, one for the CTE high school and the second for the auditorium. In that event, the auditorium would be contingent on the CTE high school renovations being passed. So let's jump into a cost overview for the first piece, which is Ian High School. The total cost of this project will amount to, or we're estimated to amount to, $33,479,125. Incorporated in this total cost estimate are all renovations to the CTE centers, all equipment upgrades, all furnishings, the demolition and grounds work, the realignment of interior high school spaces, as well as the creation of a new secure entry. State funding for this project would account to 75% of eligible CTE costs. So what's eligible? The CTE renovations, or the renovations for the CTE centers, all equipment upgrades, and all furnishings within are eligible costs for the state to cover, up to 75%. Historically, the state has, in every instance of funding CTE renovations, they have always funded at 75% level. So the state funding for this project comes in at $14,732,773. When we take this into account the total, we are left with needing to raise $18,746,352 via local bond issuance. Looking at the auditorium costs, total for this project would amount to $10,657,002. Incorporated in this cost is the creation of this two-story auditorium with a 350-seat capacity. Now, these costs have baked into them savings that we would from having savings on the site work that we would benefit because we would have crews already on the ground working on the CTE high school. These costs are outside the scope of the state funding. So the entire cost would have to be carried by the issuance of the local bond. So here we have a tax impact chart for the CTE high school project. This is in the bond's first full year of issuance. And let's take a minute to hear. On the far left, we have the district's 9 towns. In the first column, we have the 2024 district assessments for Conval. These are new numbers, and they represent each town's taxable share of how Conval is funded. So, Antrim's costs to the district are $5,229,455. The second column is illustrating the increase that the CTE high school bond would have on each town's assessment. So take a minute and find your town and see what this bond in its first full year of issuance adds to the assessment. The total bond payment district-wide in the first full year amounts to $1,626,951. The third column represents the tax rate increase for each town. This is an estimated tax rate increase for each town. So Antrim's is 52 cents per thousand. If you have your recent assessment, you can apply this number and see how this bond affects you individually. There is an estimated impact in the first full year for a $500,000 property in the far right column. So we see in Antrim, we have an estimated impact to cover this bond of $259 in the first full year. Now, the residents of Bennington, I'm sure, have noticed that there is no data available in their column. That is because they, like a number of towns in the district, recently underwent a reval, and they are a bit delayed in getting those numbers back. we will be updating this chart just as soon as they do, and on the district website, we'll be sure to do that promptly. In the time being, if I had to pick a town for them to look at to guess what the impact would be for this evening's purposes, I would say look at Greenfield. There's been some strong correlations in our numbers in the past, but whether it comes in higher or lower, we'll see in a couple weeks. So let's look at the tax impact chart in the first full year for the auditorium. On the left, the district assessment stays the same. In the second column, we have the bond increase. So the impact for the auditorium bond in the first full year district-wide amounts to $926,267. We look at the tax rate increase in dollar per thousand for Antrim. We have an estimated 29-cent increase to carry this bond in the first full year. And on a $500,000 property, that amounts to $147. In this next chart, we show the first year tax impact of the bonds combined. So that stays the same. The combined increase of the bond to each town's assessment is in column 2. District-wide, the first full year of the bond would run $2,553,218. You can then find the combined increase in the third column for your tax rate and estimates on the $500,000 property. So to pick on Antrim, 81 cents per thousand for both projects. On a $500,000 property, it's $406 in the first year. You'll notice that I've said in the first year quite a few times, and it's important that we look at the structure of the bond to figure out why. So we're going to use the CTE high school bond as an example. And before we get into the bar chart, what we're looking at is a 20-year bond with a 3.75% rate of interest with a level principal payment structure. Now, why 20 years? 20 years because it matches the useful life expectancy of the building. It also provides enough duration to make the payments a little more manageable than but it provides significant savings in terms of interest than a 30-year bond would. So it is kind of the sweet spot for this purpose. Now, we have a 3.75% rate of interest, and that's what we've been quoted by the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank. The bond bank issues bonds twice a year, once in the summer, once in January. Their last issuance was in July of 2024. Since that time, we have entered a declining interest rate environment. So there have been a few, the Fed has reduced rates, I think 2 times. We don't know where they're going to end up. But any bonds issued for this project wouldn't be issued until the summer of 2025. So there is room to hope that at the time of any issuance, we would have a lower rate. Any even modest decrease in borrowing costs and interest rates would have an effect across the board and make this entire project cheaper than the numbers that I've shared. So the last thing to consider here is the level principal payment structure. And this is important. This bond will differ than a typical mortgage, where the payment is the same over the entire life of the loan. Let's orient ourselves with the bond chart. On the left-hand side, we have the total annual payment figure. So, and on the x-axis horizontally, we have the year of that payment. So we have, I picked years 1, 5, 10, 15, 20 as examples. You'll see in year 1 that we have a total payment for the CTE in high school of $1,626,000. Now, the level principal payment structure makes it so that every year the payment of this bond decreases and significantly so. If we're looking at the same chart here, there's a hard slope down and to the right. That decrease is just over 2% per year. So the cost of the bond that we laid out in the first couple tax impact slides, that is the most expensive these bonds will ever be. They get cheaper by 2%. So in year 10, the payment on the bond will be 20% less than it is in year 1. In year 20, it will be over 40% cheaper than in year 1. This is advantage because we are paying off the interest rapidly here. So it's a rather unique structure. And when we take into account those tax impact charts, we just have to know that year 1 is hard, year 2 is a little bit easier, and so on and so forth. As many of you are, I'm sure, aware, the towns of Dublin and Francistown have petitioned to withdraw from the Conval School District. This issue is going to be headed to a vote on the March ballot. In the event of a withdrawal, there would be some impact into how the cost of any of these bonds would be allocated. If the withdrawal were successful for one or more towns, the remaining towns would need to pick up the portion of the bond cost for the withdrawing town. But the withdrawing towns, both of them, Dublin and Francistown, have indicated that they would like to send their students back to Conval via tuition agreements. And it is ultimately within this tuition that they would end up paying their fair share for any costs incurred by the district to modernize their facilities. So what are our options moving forward here? We have several. We could pursue the entire project for consideration in 2025. We could defer on the entire project this year. We could also take a two-phased approach that would see us look at it would see us seek approval for the CTE and high school portion of this project in March of 2025 and wait until 2026, if the CTE passed, to seek approval for a renovation to the auditorium. Now, if we went that route, the cost you saw for the auditorium may increase a bit. Option 4 would have us look only to renovate the CTE in high school and eliminate the auditorium from consideration. Thank you all for your time. I look forward to your feedback and questions.
So that concludes the presentations from all our different speakers. And at this point, we're going to have time for questions, both from the people who are here and also from people watching at home. We ask that if you're going to ask a question, that you limit yourself, your time that you take to ask the question to 2 minutes, so that we have the opportunity to answer all questions. We aren't here all night. And I also would like to ask the speakers to all come up to save time, because you guys are going to be the ones answering the questions much more than I am. So if you don't mind coming back up on the stage to answer the questions, I think it'll save time in the long run for us to have that approach. And if you have a question from the audience, please step up to the mic, state your name and the town you're from, and then let us hear your question. And while we're waiting for the first audience member, read the first question from online. Kelly Shirk from Greenfield asked, why is the CTE and increased secure main entrance to the building combined? And that could be answered by any number of people. Want to take a crack at that?
As we were addressing the needs for the school, there were several things that came up as you heard about through the presentation. Some of the needs had to do with the safety and security of the entry. That included as part of the project, seeing that contractors would be here working on the CTE parts of the project or areas of the school. To include that to improve the safety and security of students at the same time seemed logical to the committee at the time when we designed this. So they were intertwined. In addition to that, some of that CTE entry space and the high school CTE, the high school entry and the CTE entry are intertwined too. So all students will be going through the same spot rather than two different locations in the building, again, for safety and security to monitor who's coming into the school. So they're intertwined because some of the programs and pieces we're going to be altering in that area. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Tim?
And that having a secure single entrance is strongly recommended by the state of New Hampshire for all schools. Kelly had a whole series of questions. I'm going to just limit it to that first one, but we are going to have on our website facts with information about the projects, and we're going to answer questions that we don't get to that were written into us, so that we get to answer more questions from different people. So,
can you guys hear me? I'm Serena Barabee from Peterborough. A few questions, but the first one: what was the budget that was given to the architects for designing the CTE Center?
Tim, if you want to start.
I believe the first round of it was 188,000, perhaps, and then we had a second round of 20,000, I believe, to finish the project out. So I think we were we hovered right around 210,000.
That was to pay for the plan, though, correct?
Correct.
How much did you give them to make the plan? So usually when you build a house, you say, I have 100,000 to build the house. What was the budget of the improvements for the CTE Center?
We went back and forth. We came up with several options to solve the issue rather than a direct budget. In relation to those different options, we had A, B, C, and D option. In those options, they each had a dollar figure and what they solved with those. So there wasn't a budget that was given to us. It was, these are the issues we need to solve. Based on that, there were different cost ranges that range from, I can't remember what the lowest one was. And this was a middle ground between renovating the whole school to just some very minor renovations. And this seemed to solve the majority of the issues. So there wasn't a direct budget that was given to us for the project. It was the issues and how they get solved.
Okay. I'm a firm believer in technical education. I live it every day. So I do believe it's important. However, I'm seeing kids that are coming out of middle school and into high school with the lack of basic skills, like how to even read a ruler with inches on it. So how are we combating that, and why are we not looking at the whole picture? I stood up here last year advocating for schools to be closed so that all kids could get the skills they need to have success. And this year I'm standing here looking at a school board I feel like is maybe a little disconnected from what the students actually need. I don't think they need a $44 million renovation. I think they need skills. So how is that going to play into the picture? Are we now going to pay for a vet to run a veterinary service?
So we wouldn't be paying for a vet to come in and run a veterinary service, ma'am. Vets would be coming in as part of the program advisory committee to do the work-based learning piece. It would be a trained teacher that would be running the veterinary program.
So how much more staff would be needed for this new system? Because I just did the tour and it seemed like everyone is maxed out on there.
Two, for the two additional programs, ma'am.
2 people.
one for the health science and one for the animal science man.
So who's going to teach the machine shop that he said he was totally booked up on?
We would have to look at how that would roll out, ma'am.
Okay.
Online, Robert McDonald from Peterborough. How do the architectural plans address improved ventilation in the buildings? This was shown to be a critical shortcoming throughout the country during COVID. Do the plans address energy concerns by including heat exchangers right from the start so that high rates of air exchange do not create excessive heating and cooling costs? That's the question.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I'll take that. We're way in front of the curve with energy efficiencies in the operations of our HVAC units. We currently, in all of our packages, have demand control ventilation, which has CO2 sensors in the return ducts and the outside air dampers open and close depending on the CO2 levels that they're sensing. And then there's a minimum position for outside air coming in. During the COVID years, God, I tried to forget that. Those minimum positions were set extremely high to bring in the maximum amount of outside air even when kids weren't in the space to flush the space. So as far as energy efficiency goes with our HVAC units, we're there right now. Obviously, we'll continue that path as we replace units in spaces as space is renovated for the CTE programs.
If I could just quickly add to that, Tim. The new spaces that we'll be adding, the wall construction will be a much stronger or a much higher R value, which will increase the thermal performance of the building. So we're not going to be wasting a lot of money through the walls and through the envelope of the building. So that will be increased. In addition to that, all the new mechanical systems that will serve these new spaces we're talking about will have energy recovery systems to be able to save some of that energy and some of that heat that's already being in that space as the new air comes in and gets heated into the space. So in addition to everything Tim talked about, the new spaces will also meet or exceed standards.
Yeah, so my name is John Marcinkus. I'm from Peterborough, and thank you all for a very informative presentation. It's quite good, so thank you. My question and comment basically are one and the same in that it seems to me the Convale School Board and what you're proposing may not be fair. And the reason I say that is because Peterborough's town is $32.50 per 1,000 assessed value. Of that, $12.17 goes to the town, and $17.41 goes to the school. And Jen had mentioned that we should be investing in our students. We are, and we have been, and it's proven by our tax rate. And I think that based on a comparison of Bedford tax rate of $15.81, $10.20 basically goes to the school. Compares theirs to ours, it's a 41% difference. Now, I know it's a lot, but they have more students, more facilities, more equipment. It's kind of a comparison. We're paying so much more. Bedford's producing very high grades and very high kids leaving that school who go on to do some amazing things. I know because my niece is she lives there with her family. So my point is, how is this fair? How is this fair to all of us in Peterborough? Our school superintendents are among the highest paid public employees in the state, with salaries that double the average teacher. Right? In addition, due to administrative hiring has increased by 15%, though enrollment has dropped 14%. So in short, the taxpayers are paying more money for less students. How is this fair? So on top of all this, you have to understand, and it was made comment that our recent property tax increases really hit many of us extremely hard. Most people paid about 15% increase on their property, which is a lot. And asking us now to pay more on top of that proposal just is not fair. Now, Jen and others, I heard you all say this. Our CTE program today and our school is producing great students. Now, their facilities may not be the best that they can be, but you're producing great students and they're going on to do great things. So I think with that in mind, the school seems to be working fine. And, you know, if you want the best for our students, I understand that. I think we all do. But you can't keep asking the Peterborough taxpayer, paying for all these things that you may want, that many of us may want our students to have when we can't afford it. Now, an option might be, and this happened to me at one of the companies I worked for years ago, and I'll make this quick. I know, 2 minutes. We had local companies begging us to do certain things. We moved a facility to a town that had ample workers, and guess what? The workers did not have the skill set we needed to produce what we were making. What we did is we paid those employees now to go and get educated. We never asked the town where this company was located to pay for anything. No tax increase. We paid for all of it. If the companies in this area want the CTE program to expand, ask them to pay for it. It's only fair. They benefit from it.
So what I can share to that, sir, is that the 25% bond does not have to be made up, or the 25% does not have to be made up solely from a bond. It can be made up from donations, whether they be in kind or monetary. We need that to come. We can ask, and that doesn't necessarily make us receive.
Right, I understand. I would just expect the companies in this community who want this community to flourish and want the students to flourish and be great once they graduate to pay for some of this.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I would just like to speak to the comparison you were drawing with the town of Bedford briefly. It is a difficult comparison to make, and it is because Bedford, and I agree, there are inequities between our district and Bedford's. They have a much greater pool of equalized value and property value in their community to pull from, and with which they can then fund their schools. This is the system that we've inherited from the state in terms of needing to fund our public schools so heavily on the back of local property taxes. So it's a difficult. It's a difficult comparison to make. I agree.
Online question. Nicholas Williams, I don't see what town. I have heard numerous comments about the amount of state reimbursement. What is the guaranteed minimum, if any, that the state of New Hampshire will reimburse for CTE renovations? What is the possible maximum reimbursement amount? This has been a question at several school board meetings because some school board members have wanted us, when we make statements, to put caveats in about what money we're getting, because it isn't a literal guarantee. It's not a ironclad agreement that the state will give you 75%, no questions asked. On the other hand, as Jen alluded to earlier, I think it was Jen, they always have given 75%. So that is the standard by which they have always moved forward with these types of projects. They did a project, they approved it. So our basis has got to be on the history of every single project being funded this way. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything to that.
The minimum that is stated in the RSA is 50%. The maximum is 75%. And as you shared, historically, every project that has been funded for renovation in the state has been funded at 75%.
Yes.
We have also discussed that if, for some reason, a historical instance that the state would choose to less than 75%, the whole thing comes back to us, and we get to look again. when we get to evaluate where the funding came in. So it's not as though we are pot committed and the state has the ultimate say over the cost.
Good evening. My name is Samantha Belcourt. I live in Peterborough, and I also happen to be the CTE director in Milford Applied Technology Center. Ms. Kylie, you did a wonderful tour today. Thank you. I just want to give some history of what's going on with Milford. We're applying for $27 million for our renovation. We've been going through this process for 2 years. Our bond failed last March, and we're going up again this March. Over that year, the prices really increased, and unfortunately, we had to make a lot of cutbacks on our project because the escalation fees over just 1 year. So, as a resident, I've lived here for 4 years. I have 3 children in the school system, very proud of, 1 at SMS, 2 here at Conval. And over the 4 years, our mortgage payment has gone up $300 a month. My husband and I both work multiple jobs, so we're very aware, and my recommendation would be just to do the CTE renovation, and maybe do some type of rotating basis with the town with bond articles, so we don't get hit so much every single year. So that's it.
Thank you. With some of these online questions, I'm not editing the question. Some people have submitted a series of questions, and I'm just picking one of them. Like I mentioned before, we will answer these questions. We're going to produce a facts section on the website, second time, and with the people who are here, I want to make sure we get to their questions. Teresa Corderet from Peterborough, what is the state funding source for the proposed project? Is it only the federal DOE Perkins V grant monies?
So Perkins federal monies pay for none of the renovation. All of the renovation funding comes from the state capital budget, and that's a piece to be very clear about. Perkins funding cannot cover construction. All of the 75%, or 50 to 75%, comes from the state capital budget.
And there's one other area that's come up a number of times at board meetings, and I mentioned it in the beginning. We have this 2-year window of opportunity to apply and get this 75% funding. Jen Kiley has been in touch with the CTE, her CTE counterparts, and also with the state people in charge of this. The future is unwritten. We don't know if this program is going to continue in this fashion. We do know this is what the program is now, and this is our opportunity, these 2 years. That's why Milford is applying now, too. It's their opportunity. So we are bringing this up, we started in 2022, because of this opportunity to get this heavily subsidized by the state.
Right. I'm a transparent person because I just like honesty and straight shooting, and I imagine most of you folks do as well. There is currently an advisory committee formed by the Department of Education and the governor, looking at what renovation funding is going to be like in the future. Their report is due in May of 2025. There is the possibility that they will completely change how renovations are funded, and that we will be moving from center-based to programs only, and that it will be, as it stands right now, centers are renovated in the order in which they were built, so that each center receives an equal opportunity. That has the potential to change with the report that is submitted in May of 2025.
My name is John Manley, and I'm from the town of Bennington, standing here in the Lucy Hurlin Theater, which was originally designed as a lecture hall. I've been here since about the beginning. My question for you is going to be a short one. It's going to be a nightmare to do what you said could happen here, and it would still be an inadequate space for a theater. Wouldn't it be more cost effective just to build a new theater?
As we looked at the spaces, we looked at the site, we looked at where we could add on. We did do a cost analysis to figure out what would be the best place for it. And the space that was ultimately determined was to use this space based on everything that we came up with. I do agree with you. Renovation, especially in the center of a school, is not easy, and that's why some of the costs reflect that into what we're doing for this project. Did that answer your question?
So here's another question from Teresa. How does the fact that the town of Peterborough has essentially maxed out their ability to do more projects currently impact, if at all, the school district's bonding opportunities? And I think, Curtis, you and I talked about this before. I don't know if you were interested in taking that one on. You're not, but you had talked about the town versus school board, or is that a different Curtis I was talking? I don't. Oh, okay. Well, I think the whoever I was talking to was saying that you're comparing apples and oranges. Peterborough borrows on behalf of Peterborough. The Conval funds for the entire school district, not just for one town. I'm a Peterborough resident, as are many of you. We just approved the fire station, and we are getting hit with that. So I'm aware of that as much as you are. But that's something we wanted to do, needed to do, and we did it. So that's just a fact.
I have I'm Cy Little. I'm from Francistown. I have two questions. What impact do the announced tariffs? Canada is much the source of our lumber building, and all our steel, to my knowledge, comes from China before it's fabricated into workable parts, girders, and things like that. What impact is that? Have you put any impact on that? And the second question is, did I understand correctly that you're proposing to spend $44 million where you're going to lose more than 100 students in the next 10 years?
We are, I think Curtis did bring up different options that we have for bonding. We have not made any decisions yet. That's one of the reasons we're having this community forum. We want feedback from the residents.
But I mean, it's just read the news. I mean, Trump is talking, President Trump is talking about 20% tariffs on materials coming from Canada. To my knowledge, most of the framing material, lumber and things like that come from Canada. Most of our steel that is used, or iron that's used in construction, comes from China. It's fabricated the workable elements of the building. But they're talking about a 50% tariff. Aren't you hiding the ball a little bit by not discussing that?
Well, I was answering the second part of your question, the one about the declining enrollment. I wasn't answering.
Well, no, you essentially said yes. I mean, we're going to spend $44 million, and 10 years from now, there's going to be more than 100 students fewer in the high school according to production.
I didn't say that. I said we're considering several options. One of them was the $44 million option that you mentioned. There's other options that are on the table.
Well, okay,
also.
$15 million, and in 10 years from now, you're still going to be more than 100 students down in your census.
So one of the things that is germane to that, and I had thought it was an excellent question. If we have shrinking enrollment, why are we spending money to do upgrades? Well, if the facility needs an upgrade, whether it's half filled or if it's full, some things need to be done. A secure entrance to keep the students safe is something the state of New Hampshire strongly recommends we do. Whether we have 700 students or 600 students or 500 students, we do want to keep those students safe. Now, we may not go ahead with it because we may not be able to afford it, or we may decide that it is worth doing. But the point is, even with shrinking enrollment, we still do have certain obligations to our students.
Well, that may be, but your obligations are more in putting in the machinery, the technology, not in putting in new space. You haven't even addressed the issue of what's it going to cost to fit up this new space?
Oh, the tariff issue? Yeah, I certainly am not the person to answer that question. I don't know who is.
So you're basically saying, we're going to spend all this money.
I'm telling you, I don't know the answer to your question. So I want to be clear. I'm not telling you anything other than I don't know.
Well,
so if someone else up here knows how the proposed possible tariffs are going to impact the cost of construction, then they can answer that question.
Well, but also the costs of putting in the machinery, the computers, all the ancillary equipment, which is not a capital expense.
So
that's not going to be bonded.
All equipment and furnishing costs were included in the estimates for the CTE centers, and they are all eligible, receiving state funding to the tune of 75%. We can't react to every headline in the news that is a hypothetical that is yet to come about. It wouldn't be a responsible way to operate. I think that's as much as I can say to the tariff question. I can say that I've heard in the architect's presentation that these costs do anticipate inflation, and they do look out a year from now to when the proposed building would take place. Thanks.
Thank you.
Lisa Worth, doesn't have a town. Would the board consider separating the warrant article into one for the CTE and one for the theater, separating the cost for these additions? That was answered, and the answer is we are considering that as one of the options. Has the board considered grant funding for the theater? I know that the superintendent is constantly applying for and getting grants for the Conval school system. I don't know that there is such a grant that exists for a new theater. Let's go back to our
Richard Sanders, Peterborough, and I'm specifically interested in, with the theater, when we're talking about the renovations, first of all, how much larger will the stage be than what we see right here now? And I mean specifics.
I can get you the exact number to be very specific. I don't have that number with me right now, but it will be roughly 1.5 to 2 times the size of this, with additional wing space and additional back space.
Yeah, I caught that. Thank you. I also will comment that I would hope that any stage, if this is to happen, could accommodate a 90-piece band, a 90-voice, and we have, I'll get quickly, I was hired as a music director of the school when it opened. So I came in with the original equipment, and you can see it now. But I know there was a drive to put the Performing Arts Center between the two wings of the building. And unfortunately, the public did not support it very well. This theater, with the seating, will not accommodate the size of the audiences who attend concerts that are put on by our musical performing groups. And I remember doing an awful lot of shows right here, sitting and conducting and doing the whole thing. It worked. Maybe it wasn't the fanciest lighting. It's a lot better now than it was in those days, but people loved it. And this $10 million figure right now, to me, I'm just very doubtful. And I am a great supporter of the arts, believe me, but I have real concerns on that.
Thank you. Brenda Marshuk from Greenfield. Is the ATC proposing veterinarian sciences in the way of vet tech or veterinarians, or is it grooming?
Sure. So one of the great things about CTE is we're talking about career program areas, and under any career program area, there are dozens of career pathways. we don't want to pigeonhole our kids into any one pathway. We don't want to put them in the pipeline for any one particular career. We're giving them the skills so that they can do that exploration and get the breadth of what is available to them and then make the career choice that's best suited to themselves.
Blake Minkler from Dublin. Curtis, you outlined the bond information for the combined project about the flat principal payment and the decreasing interest over the term of the bond. Have you received similar information from the bond bank if the project were to be split up into the separate CTE theater renovations? Are the bonds going to look the same? Do we know?
Yeah, they would both be the same structure. So you're talking about the CTE.
Yeah, so if we just go with the
the bond for
CTE,
the auditorium.
right, we just go with the CTE structure with the decreasing interest over time.
That was the chart for the CTE bond that we were looking at, the bar chart. So yes, it would be a.
No, I thought that was the combined total cost for the whole project.
Well, there was a chart for the combined cost, but that was a tax impact in year one. So the bar chart was using the CTE and high school. Yep, there it is. Go back one, or forward one, sorry, forward two. Next one. This, yes, this is the structure of the CTE and high school bond. Not the theater.
Not the
yes,
theater.
the theater bond would follow the same structure, just with a starting point of, I think it was 900 and something thousand in the first payment. But the same percentage decrease year to year would be about 2% less every year.
Secondly, I've read all the communications. I've heard everybody talking, and it really seems like there's a sense of urgency being pushed to the people of the district. Like we have our back up against the wall, that we're going to miss out on the opportunity. And two examples already tonight. One by your architect, when you discussed the renovation that you participated in between Newport and Claremont, right? They have a combined CTE program, and the renovation wasn't completed at the Claremont location. It was just at the Newport location, and Claremont's still on the list for eligibility for a renovation. So you don't lose out based off the current structure. And secondly, with Milford, they didn't pass last year. They're trying again. And if it doesn't pass this year, they're still going to be able to try again because there's only 4 schools in the district, 4 ATCs in the entire state that are even eligible for renovation right now.
So as it is currently, you're 100% right, sir. But the question is, and we don't, just as we've mentioned before, we don't have that crystal ball. We don't know what the report is going to say that comes out in
The
May.
report doesn't matter because the current $14 million funding from the state of New Hampshire is coming from the 2026-2027 budget that's being written right now.
However, sir, the budget is not signed until July of 2025. So in fact, it does matter.
But the constant communication of this is us. I don't see that.
It may not be, sir, and I agree with you. It's hard when things are not concrete and not in black and white because I'm somebody who really appreciates solid answers, so I get that. The fact that we have the advisory committee right now and that potential report coming out makes things very gray.
But
and
that report,
even when we ask the state about what the possibilities are, they can't give us a solid answer. What I can tell you, sir, is that if it were to stay as it is currently, the administrative rules, until they are changed, would allow us to fail the bond in March of 2025 to reapply. So that part is accurate, sir. But I don't know what's going to happen, and nobody does, with that report coming out in May.
so that report that comes out in May also provides the structure to write the new administrative rule, which is a 2-year process.
I understand that.
So the report comes out May 2025, but it's not going to be another 2 years after that before it goes through the legislative process, through the executive, everything of the
Executive
state
Council,
before it gets signed by the governor. Up until that point, two years post 2025's report, we still fall under the guidelines of the current administrative rule.
That is accurate.
So,
but the governor can still list on the report that comes out in May that he will not include any renovation funding. Beg your pardon. The current person is I apologize. will not include the renovation funding.
The
in
governor is not involved with the funding. It's the Commissioner of Education.
That's erroneous, sir. It's the governor's capital budget.
Hey Blake, before you go, here's a chart that indicates the tax impact on the level principal payment structure. So we have tax impact, and this is for the CTE and high school bond. So the estimate of on a $500,000 property, and you'll see how the impact declines from years 1 to 10 to 20. Now, this is the forward-looking estimates are estimates. A lot changes in 10 years. The town's assessment, the town's allocation, the district budget. But this would represent but this is just the declining scale of that payment, and the payment on the bond would be fixed, right?
Right. Also,
Yes.
on
So
decline.
as a percentage of that budget over time, right? The payment back on the bond is a smaller and smaller percentage. I just thought I'd show that to you.
Let's see if we have a question from the audience. Serena Berube from Peterborough. What is the current seating capacity of the theater? Did I mispronounce that name?
No, she's here.
Oh, she's here. Well, she did both then, so she gets a double. What's the current seating capacity of the theater, and how often is it used? How many students are utilizing this space daily? I don't know the answer to that.
The current seating capacity is 200. We have 196 chairs, and then we have 4 spaces that we designate for accessibility in wheelchairs. On a daily basis, right now we have 1 section of theater. Depending on the year, there's 1 or 2 sections. I believe it's about 20 students. I don't have the numbers right next to me. About 3/4 of them are introductory theater students, and I believe we have about 5 advanced students in that section right now. There's typically, on average, about 4 instances. We have about 75 students from co-curriculars, participants on average, since we got back and going. Again, I started during COVID, so as we got back and going, and we have close to over 1,000 different audience participants that come in to use the theater. Again, there are some years where there can be an extra production or play that happens. Outside of just the theater needs, we also utilize this space for other reasons. I was with my staff after school in this space today talking about NEASC. There are, on a very small level, sometimes there are some groups that seek permission, but it's pretty much in-house right now due to what we have available. I'm sorry? Oh, yes. Yep. We have class meetings. Thank you. We have, sometimes we'll have different guest speakers, presentations. We have an SRO, Officer Justin Highland. Sometimes he will come do some safety pieces down here. So we try to use this space as often as we can within the confines of the other classes.
So sometimes it's SRO in here? 2 quick questions.
I'm sorry, I should also give him that he's been very involved in our CTE programs. So he's gone down to the business classes and talked about law, and he's helped students get other internships. So he's also been a partner with the high school and CTE.
Great. Bob Herring-Smith from Peterborough. 2 quick questions, I hope. One is, will the school board consider using any portion of the existing capital reserve fund in order to reduce the amount that needs to be bonded?
It's not something currently we
Okay, you got 3.5 years there. I don't know if you have any other plans for it, but this seems like a good one. The other question is, does the new theater have any fly space above the stage?
I just say first, to address the trust funds, not all of the trust funds would be eligible to.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be, say, $4 million. We would have to.
I wouldn't think you'd want to use all of it anyway,
trust
but
funds that would be applicable for said cost.
Okay.
Yes, the fly space was in the plan. Jay, don't say otherwise. It was in the plan, correct? Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we don't have any more online, so
Thank you. My name's Joe McGregor. I'm from Bennington. We've heard some wonderful information tonight, but I wonder if you could give us an idea of if this program is approved, what's the potential time frame as far as construction? How long will that take? And what's the potential impact on the students since we're closing some rooms and moving buildings? And give us a general idea on that, please.
Yes, very, very good question. It will depend a little bit on what is approved, if it's both parts, if it's the whole CTE part, or the theater part. We'll talk about the high school CTE part first. Typically, as the drawings you've seen right now are very schematic, very conceptual. What that is it allows us to make some flexibility at this time to try to understand the scope of what we're getting at. After the bond is actually approved by the voters, when that happens, there's usually a 9-month period where we're actually in full design. So that's where we're meeting with some of the people you see here. We're also meeting with teachers and students to really understand each space really at the smaller level. Not just us, but there are also a team of engineers that are part of that. So it's a full blown set of drawings, and we'll go through several phases where we'll get to a set of drawings that will be put out to bid. Typically, we put that out to bid at the beginning of the year, so the following year. The beginning of the year is the best time to bid things because people are looking for projects for summer. They're trying to fill their docket and line of projects. So that's when we typically. So we'll put it out to bid then. After that, then the bidding period will go on, and summer is when we start to move students around. Well, students aren't here, so we're able to do some demolition when students aren't here, open up some space. Because there would be a little extra space, it would be a phased occupied construction, so we make sure students are safe through the whole process, which typically extends the construction period because we are making sure students are safe and we only can do smaller chunks. So ideally, we'd loan for a year and then be able to have the whole school to ourselves, but that doesn't work. So it's roughly 2 years. No, there we go. Roughly 2 years of full construction. So it would open, quickly do the math, so 2026, 28. So 2028 it would open. That's a long answer to your question. 2 years. We work with the staff to make sure students are safe and they have spaces throughout a period of construction. The construction schedule is extended because we will have to make sure they're safe and we only can bite off smaller chunks. So typically the project would be 15 months or so, but now will take 2 years so that we can do smaller chunks.
Okay, we're going to have our last two questions.
Good evening, John Wood, Dublin. And this is only for the school board, not for the architects. A year ago, we sat in this auditorium and talked about closing schools. The chair of the school breaking the taxpayers' back that we needed to save $2 million per year minimum, up to $4 million. Yet the school board hasn't attempted to make any additional cost-cutting methods that you currently have the ability to do today, and now you're asking the taxpayers to support another $29 million of local tax revenue. So my question to the school board is, number one, do you not think that this is a waste of time for taxpayers to continually ask them to pay more when you're not willing to do the hard work of cutting costs in the area that you already have the ability to do that? And number two, as I asked last year about the closing of the schools, if this doesn't pass, what do you do? What's plan B? Thank you.
I don't really see them as related personally, and here's why. We're getting 50% off. That's what the CTE renovation portion of it. We won't have that. That question that gentleman asked before, I forget his name, Blake, I think. It's such a gray area about this 2-year window we have and whether we can apply again, and also whether or not the state funding is going to change. So that we don't have a crystal ball to see the future. We weren't able to apply for this to get a 50% discount when you do when you add up all the work prior to 2 years ago. Is that correct, Jen? Our window opened up last year. Right. So we did not have the opportunity to do this. When you can get something for 50% off, I think you should consider it.
It's not 50% off, sir. It's 75% off of the CTE portion. Of that, $29 million is going to be raised by local taxes. The state's money is the state's money. That's funny money. It's not guaranteed, even if it is, great, right? I'm talking about the $29 million based on the two numbers that you put on there. Those combined is $29 million, $29,403,354.
Just to be specific, of the CTE and high school portion, the reimbursement of state funds would amount to roughly 44%.
Okay, I took a local bond of 18,746, and you go to the next slide, and you take the local bond of whatever that was, and that's the $29 million.
You're right. There are several choices on the table.
So my question is, if you did all of what you want in the all-you-can-eat buffet, how do you expect the taxpayers to approve this when you haven't shown the ability to cut any costs and reduce the budget that's already $60+ million, and now you're going to ask to put us in another $29 million for 20 years, right? We're debt-free right now. Could we not just simply save, like we should be teaching kids for finances, and pay as you go off of the tax funds instead of borrowing $29 million, right? And do it that way versus asking us to continually pay more, as the gentleman from Peterborough has stated, right? Sometimes it's better to teach our kids by doing an example of we save and then we spend, not borrow and then spend.
Well, I won't deny that your question is thoughtful, and it is also one that we have and continue to ask ourselves. And you'll notice that in the list of options, there were 4. Okay, thanks.
Hi, thank you. Rashay Colcom. My question, money-wise, I'm from Hillsborough. I'm state rep and from Bennington. So my question really in the scope of the money is probably small. In 2022, the New Hampshire came up with the SAFE grant, and they've been issuing money for the SAFE grant, which would have covered your secure main entryway. I'm curious, has Conval applied for that SAFE grant over the years? And if you have, how has it been used? And why was the decision made to not do the door security at that point in time?
Yes, we have applied for it. We've applied for it twice, and we've received it twice. And everything that we did was per the recommendation of the Homeland Security audit that we had. Access control, door fobs, blocking the doors around the perimeters of the schools, all the 11 schools in our district. Security cameras were installed, and we have a third round that we just received that we're going to do more access control security cameras. We have not applied for the grant for the work that you saw. We will more than likely go at it because I know there's another round that came out. So we will also apply for that. I think it's a maximum of $100,000 though. I think our proposal was quite a bit more. But if we're able to apply and we receive it, we will definitely do it.
Well, thank you everybody for coming out. Thank you to our audience at home. This will be available, our program to watch if you wanted to review any of the information. And like I said, we're going to continue to update the information as in the coming weeks in response to some of the questions we heard. We appreciate you coming out on a snowy night. Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, we're going to have like back. like, so that way it's not so interactive. We'll get a question and we'll